evening. Happy New Year, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So I learned a few new things today that I'm going to try out here. So before I move forward, though, let's do a save as, and we'll give it the letter B. I'll save it in here. All right. So I think we'll start with this back here. And let's go ahead and hide these so I can work on this area here. All right, perfect. So I learned that if I kind of select the whole scene, except I don't want to select the layer, just want to select the drawing and change its color, I can do that. All right. All right, and then we'll lock that one, unlock you, and then we will go ahead and select that layer. And let's start playing with this color a little bit. Changed all to black, which I don't want. All right. Alright, so let's try that out, see how this goes with the painting in here. Actually, I'm not sure. You know, I've actually I forgot to put this in here. I'm thinking about it. You know, I have mixed feelings about this program, so I probably brought that up in here before, but I have opinions. But I thought, you know, I realized that I can select the layers and automatically change them well, change the colors rather, not the layers. It has like a lot of limitations that kind of annoy me in it. So on the computer, you could probably do this similar thing with Grease Pencil. If I were on the computer, though, probably the wiser course of action would be to kind of create all the layers and then maybe do something in After Effects or Blender. Of course, you can do this as well. But it has a lot of limitations to it. But I realized how to color it, so I thought I would kind of give that a go here. And I need to give like some of these things some different colors in the background. So the thing is, if you want to like where they put the tools and everything, it's just really awkward. Nope, wrong button. Oh, that's the wrong button. There we go. There we go. So, like you have really limited brushes with it and some other things that I'm not really that big of a fan of. So those things kind of get in the way. For me, at least, in terms of any significant long-term use. But so I probably wouldn't necessarily recommend it, on the computer as much. I think they do have a web app or something for it. And I was looking at their website, not their website, their YouTube page, and realized that they've been on this project for nearly 10 years now. They started 9 years ago, based off of what's on their YouTube page. Yeah, all you can do with the brushes is change their size. So if you look up here, like that's it. That's what you got. You got the brush, you got the size, and if you want to change opacity, you have to come over to the color swatch and change that over here. So again, but I paid for this a long time ago, so so I thought I would go ahead and I just put some time into this drawing, so I thought I would finish it up, maybe do a couple more, because you can put together I think 3 of these kind of as presentation pieces where you can link to it on a site and people can actually interact with it. It can just record the video of it, so like you can play it from like this. So I grab, put it into camera mode, and you select scenes. I've turned off a lot of the foreground here, so I won't show them right now. But you can kind of play through a video like this. And I guess I saw Bobby Chiu, he's going to be doing a new, what's it called? A new infinite drawing. So basically as you zoom in, your brushes or size and their texture and thing are based off of what you're zooming. So I could zoom in here and draw something else in here, and you could kind of keep going past. So you can keep zooming out, and then you zoom in, and you kind of do like an infinite zoom image. So that's kind of an interesting thing you can do with it. But again, it's something you could do with other. Let's see, I'm gonna go ahead and delete that one. Let's see. How do you delete? There you go. Yeah, so I think the brushes are all vector based. If I had to guess, I assume so. Because one of the things when you go through, you start selecting things, it selects the stroke. But then again, you can't like edit the strokes either. And then I've kind of looked at the layout here, and it's very, very similar to that Feather app. I'm wondering if the companies are related to each other somehow. So I've wondered if they're the same kind of thing, because the other one's like basically taking a making a grease pencil basically, a ZBrush feather app, and then so, but it's definitely kind of fun. Again, the problem with it is you can't really customize your brushes. There's only one eraser. I think it basically just erases a stroke completely, or the different points on the stroke. So it's not very precise. Um, so, um, those are kind of some things that I've noticed as I've kind of played with, pulled it out. I used it a long time ago. Actually, the file I was working on somehow I didn't save it properly or something, and it disappeared. So I don't have that anymore. It's kind of a weird drawing of this guy and weird monster and things like that. Fun stuff, but I don't have it anymore. So, as long as you're okay with the limitations, it might be okay for people to use it. Um, for me, they kind of get in the way of it, and feels like there's just other things I could do. Let's see. Something to listen to. For all these super smart algorithmic systems that give us things to look at or listen to or whatever, seems like their selections are always super limited. Let's see, where did my little oh, that works, that's interesting. Let's go with covers. It's you can do it as a one-time purchase. There's a creator version or creator edition. The full version, which includes I guess some training and a few other things. Where'd the volume go? Let's see. It comes with that kind of thing. Tablet of choice. Well, this is iPad Pro here. It's 3 years old, so whatever version came out 3 years ago. But yeah, so there's a Pro version. It's like $60 a month, which is just kind of, I don't know who's going to pay that, but seems like a lot to me. There's a creator version. I think that was like a $30 one-time purchase. And it's kind of interesting if you've got time to dink around with it. It's entertaining enough, I suppose. But for me, I would say it's probably not worth that much. Let's see, I want to go for something bluer and darker. A little variety in these greens. Yeah, so that's kind of the policy there. The question is like the interactive display element of it, because you don't export it directly out of the app and then onto your site in some kind of little player. If their company ever disappears, so do your interactive images. Like if you want to put these up on your own website, you have they give you 3 to do that they'll host as part of that purchase, that creator purchase. So again, there's just like a bunch of weird things, right? So it's not like if you had Clip Studio Paint or whatever, as long as the operating system continued to support it, you could keep using it no matter how long. Like this, so you lose features if the company ever disappears. Yeah, so you could, you could keep drawing with it as long as the operating system still works with it, but you couldn't do that interactive export, which is part of I think one of the big selling points for it. If I had to pick one, but you could do the video play thing and capture the videos of it, so that would remain. I did hit up one of the app makers that I know, said, hey, have you ever thought about integrating this or some kind of similar system? And because I think I've asked them about it before, they say they didn't want to because they didn't want to step on other people's toes. But like I've looked at what they, just in terms of what they've done the last 2 years with the app, and they really haven't updated it, beyond making sure it works. So, I would say, maybe I'd take another look at that. See, so I sent him a note and said, hey, I've thought about integrating this in because people like it. It's seems like there's a lot of interest in this type of thing. Let's see, let's grab that orange and let's play up that color some more. So, and so maybe something will come from that. Yeah, so this has, there's just a certain kind of weird aspects to it, but I don't know that I can directly recommend it. All right, Bosch, you coming over here? The dog's coming on over. Or was thinking about it anyway. So, but I thought, I did learn today that I can select layers and change their colors kind of on the fly. Or select brush strokes and change their colors. So, there's not a huge number of features in here. So, a lot of times I just sit down and start, playing with things and don't realize there's a whole other thing going on with them. It's like when I did a demo for Infinite Painter at Lightbox online a couple of years ago. I didn't know about a lot of the handy perspective tools they had in there, and I'd learned about them during the live stream. Though he's like, "Well, have you tried this?" And I'm like, "No, what's that?" Like, oh, that would have been nice to have known earlier. But now I know. So, I'd love to be more positive about it, but just say, hey, yeah, go get it. It's awesome. I mean, it is kind of fun, you can, draw in 3D and, record the videos and things like that. But the price tag is kind of hefty for it. and so that's where I kind of get annoyed. If it was like a $5 purchase or something like that, I'd say, okay, yeah, go ahead, I'd buy that, recommend that as a purchase. But it's $30, which, compare that to other things on the App Store side, seems like a lot. And then you look at their Pro version that costs as much as an Adobe subscription. That starts to annoy me a little bit. And then there's the fact that they haven't updated it much in the last couple of years. So you kind of bring all those things together, and I'm like, I don't know that I can recommend it. But people like it. I moved over to the YouTube side, huh? Yeah. So yeah. That's there is a lot of tools, right, for perspective stuff, like especially on the iPad. You don't see them as much on the computer. Like Corel Painter, they have some perspective grid things that are really nice. What's this other one? There's one that's like does painting simulation that's similar in some ways. It has a very kind of basic interface. They have you can paint in perspective, so as you follow the grid back with your brush strokes, it'll change its size and things, and the scattering scale. But it's interesting though with perspective stuff. I found that once you kind of get into it, it kind of affects your perception in your brain, and a lot of people kind of geek out on it. Like we had a professor at my university where I kind of gave him my course materials, and we do a lot of perspective stuff. I don't like make the students in this particular class do the intensive stuff, but I show it to them just kind of to explain why things work. And I don't know how many actually, care about that, but and I can understand where they might not appreciate it as much, because if you don't do it, it's kind of not as meaningful. Though some students they tend to get into it a little bit more than others. But yeah, well, on YouTube I've got it streamed over to my computer. I have you can if you have like a Mac, you can do it directly. But I bought this little like $20 program that lets me send it over to the PC. So it's called Airstream. I think it's Airstream or Air something. Air Server. That's what it's called. And lets me kind of send it over to the computer. And so you get the clearest view that way for this type of thing. Yeah, so that lets me send it that way. Um, so yeah, I imagine it's much better over there for this kind of thing. But yeah, I was this professor. He started doing the perspective stuff. I started tutoring him in perspective because it's not really his thing. Like he's a really good illustrator, a big award-winning illustrator. I won't say who here, but He's a big award-winning illustrator, someone I've known about for a long time, and it's great finding out he's here where I'm working, teaching. And anyway, started tutoring with the perspective stuff on my non-teaching days when he's teaching, coming in during lunch to help him out. And he's totally geeking out on perspective now, which is it's interesting. Because he's like, he's 4 or 5 years older, I think, than I am. And he's like all about it now. Because once you kind of get it, it's really not that hard to do. It is a little bit time consuming, but really when you're working with it, it's like you're doing the same 5 things over and over again, just for different ways of doing it. It's kind of similar when you learn to like use a 3D computer program or something. You tend to be doing the same essential things over and over again. I would say computer programs are more complex. If you're trying to learn Blender or something like that, it's way more complex. Like I forget how to do things in there all the time. I have to go back and review and figure it out and remember. But or ZBrush is one of those programs too where if you don't use it for a while, you'll forget what's there. Which is weird. You think I know how to do things, but I think because it's a lot of things are technical processes rather than intuitive ones, and they're kind of buried in menus, it makes it hard to remember certain things about it. I think that's probably where that kind of comes from. I haven't dig into the menu to grab that eyedropper tool. Is kind of annoying. Yeah, so again, I'd love to recommend it. Say, oh yeah, this is great. Everyone should pick it up. It's awesome. It's just it has a lot of these kind of weird limits on it that aren't overwhelmed or aren't compensated by its functionality. Hey, come back here, you. Yeah, so again, it's kind of fun being able to do this with it. But again, you could probably do something similar with Grease Pencil in Blender. And get all the extra functionality of actual animation and other things too, not just camera movements. Let's see, too saturated. That's better. around with a different color on there. Really, I should have done this area down here on a separate canvas. I wish they had an airbrush in here too. So, closest thing you kind of get is a the pencil brush. You can kind of fake a textured airbrush, but it's not like a true airbrush. So, I don't know. But I bought it like, 2 or 3 years ago, so I've had it for a while. Maybe it was 2 years ago. It was of interest to my area head at the university because it's a motion design program. So he wanted to hear what I thought about it because he wanted me to kind of integrate myself more into the major, which is interesting because I'm not an animator at all. And I think he saw this kind of program as a way of helping with that kind of process, having an illustration type area within a motion design department. Problem is, I think, is a lot of the animation style in motion design tends to lean into called the corporate style for illustration, which most illustrators don't really like all that much. It has its place, but it kind of lacks personality and distinctive qualities, and that tends to be what you see in a lot of illustrative motion design because it has to be produced really quickly. At least you can rotate the canvas to get different brushes on there. Let's grab that color. I think I've got too much of this orange over there. Oh yeah, I don't really watch sports, so I don't I don't know what who they're using, but to make like their graphics and things like that. Yeah, a lot of that stuff has to be produced really fast, and so it tends to not be that that great. Let's see, I want to grab some of this shadow. There we go. Yeah, there's some really cool motion design. You'll see in TV show intros and things like that are really, really good. That's also a form of motion design. I can see with like the opening for Daredevil was really nice. You can pin comments. Nice. Yeah, well, I mean, I can pin my own comment, or I'll pin other people's too. I tend to pin a comment in Instagram just so I can put whatever I'm doing there. So I've done that for a long time, but often answers basic questions like, what program am I using? This and darken that down, not opacity, shadow. Yeah, it's a handy feature. It's been there a long time, but that's what I tend to use it for. I guess I could pin other people's comments if I really wanted to. Actually, the problem I run into Instagram recently is so I have a corporation, and for my freelance and other kind of business things I try to do. Anyway, I let the old one kind of slide, and I'd use that one to set up payment and stuff on Instagram. For to get paid out to different ways, and anyway, it won't let me change the corporation name and EIN. At least it had. I changed it on the Facebook business page, so able to get in there and do it there. So I should check and see if it updated it on the actual Instagram account. But it wouldn't let me do it like in the app. And so even if I don't get that many, but if someone had sent me a badge in Instagram, like I don't get the money, at least not yet. I think I don't get that many, so it's not a big deal. But it's like every 6 months or something, someone will send me one. But it's kind of just annoying that if I wanted to, I couldn't really access it. At least not yet. Yeah, and it seems like they're packing Instagram with all these things when they could just make it work good. Hey, it's Mr. Shape Carver. Speaking of shapes, right? Hope you don't mind, but I did stick some of your stuff into my Canvas, my online university Canvas course, because we do a lot of shapey stuff in there, and you're a very good example of that. As limited as your ArtStation is, assuming you're still in here, you didn't just pop in for half a second. Alright, let's see how this looks in better context. So one of the things I can do here is if I've got this selected, I can add a new canvas that faces that one. And this is kind of what's me put in like basically a new layer. So I can move this back. It's kind of right in front of that one. And once I have that, then what I can do is we'll switch to a more atmospheric brush, which would be you. Pump up the size. Really big. If I wanted to create like an atmospheric layer, I grab a color like that, bring its opacity down, put that in front. Now, you can't do layer effects, sadly. Here, let's back that up. Get a bigger view. So trying to keep this scattered like this. But I can do that to kind of create atmosphere in the layers. Along with the clouds to push that out a little bit more. But unfortunately, like, if you could just get like layer effects on here, that would make a huge difference for getting the atmosphere to work correctly. But you know, again, just you can't. So I guess I'll put that in a different. The layer ordering of the canvases there on the left doesn't really matter. I like it keep in order just so I know where things are at more easily. Yeah, so now I can grab. Let's go ahead and hide these foreground layers again. Let's work on the back. So that should be similar to that. I did learn, again, you can select things to change their color. So if I grab, actually, let's see if it'll let me just fill the whole thing. Oh, how about if we, so make sure I got the drawing layer locked. Just want to grab the whole thing. It must be on the drawing layer. Yep, there it is. I have to erase that out later on. But yeah, so now we'll go ahead and grab that color and just put it all in there. And then what I can do is then lighten it up a little bit so it's further back and blue it up a little bit. Lighten up a little bit more. That should be good. So you can work like that, and then if we grab, pull these layers out, lock the color, unlock the line, and then need to erase this little area right here. Put the drawing back in separately. But now I can select drawing, and we can change that color to, can use like the line color, actually colored lines. It's always a nicer thing anyway, right? And then let's push that over just to be a little bluer. All right. And that gives us a good little start there. And then got that unlocked, so I did want to go ahead and draw that. And I think I was using a pencil to draw this stuff, yeah, pencil, so go ahead and, oops, I'll bring that size way down, too small. Now when I go back in, I can clean that up a bit. Alright, I'm going to lock that, unlock you, and work on this layer. Let's stick with using you for coloring. Let's grab this color and fill in some of this stuff. It's missing. And then we'll get a shadow color on there. It's not opacity we wanted. I keep wanting to use like different shortcuts and things that I use in other programs, like being able to change the brush size with my fingertips and things like that. Like Infinite Painting, change the brush size by moving your three fingers on it, along with opacity, going selecting opacities left and right, and brush sizes up and down with 3 fingers, which is a nice little convenience. But yeah, that was saying about that other professor, like he's really geeked out on perspective ever since the little tutorials I gave him. It's like, so does it work this way? I'm like, nope, not at all. It doesn't work like that. This is how it works. He's like, oh, it's interesting. And then I'm sitting in meetings and he's drawing boxes and ellipses and other things, mapping it out. This is nothing he was ever taught. It doesn't really factor into his style. He's like an award-winning, respected illustrator that's out there. If you were to go look at the Society of Illustrators annuals and other things, he's been active for decades. He's just like, oh, I've never learned this before. I'm like, yeah, they don't really teach it. I didn't learn it this way. When I learned perspective in school, they just kind of sat you down the hall and had you draw everything to a vanishing point in the hallway, which isn't that much. And again, it was like I was pointing out to him, and other people I point all the time, but it's really a small handful of things you're just kind of doing in somewhat different ways over and over again. Not that there aren't complicated things you can do or time-consuming things, but really the hardest part's just keeping track of what's what. Let's see, let's reduce that. So I can paint these as like almost like rocks. Let's just bring the darkness level down now. Yeah, I learned it all. I had to do it all on my own. I didn't have any tutors. I did get some tutorial videos and things like that I could get at the time. I can't remember this guy's name, but he had a series he did on Essentials of Perspective that were from the old conceptart.org days. So these are like massive black tutorials. And I used his videos kind of as the starting place because he actually taught the technical stuff in perspective, which if you don't know what book to look at, you might not realize what you're missing out on. Like a lot of books, they skip things, like they won't go into ellipses or just like things that I think would be really helpful at a basic level, like they don't really cover that well, which surprised me because it's like once you learn how to do it, it's not that hard to understand. It just takes a little practice. So and that's partially what led to kind of my teaching website was kind of recognizing that that's not really easy to find. I think there is a course that's pretty in depth out on New Masters Academy, taught by a guy I met once, but I don't know how good it is, having never used it. I did see it's there, but I haven't ever. So let's grab you. I need a darker version of you for the trees. It's also bluer. Yeah, people complain a lot about greens in nature. Like even if you're got landscape painting, where it's like everything's always so green, and I think it's a failure to kind of see the world and temperature relationships and all of that stuff. Like, it's not like you just go out with like the color green and you start painting everything that's green with that color. It's temperature variation. It's like saying you go out in the desert and everything's orange, and it's like, well, it's not really accurate. And there's more than one kind of orange that you can make. Same with greens. Like one of the keys to like a really good green with traditional oil paint is to add red to it. So even if you are using like a Viridian or a sap green or cadmium or something like that, by putting a little bit of red in it, you can really shift its temperature in a way that makes it more interesting to use. And some with greens you can mix from. There's two different ways of basically mixing greens. Both, of course, involve yellow, but let's see, it's just a little too warm. There we go, it's better. So one is your traditional blue and yellow. There's different blues you can use, but you'll see any blue and any yellow, like cadmium yellow and ultramarine blue or Prussian blue or cerulean or whatever other blues you can use. And that's one way. But another really good way is actually using black as your blue. So mixing cadmium yellow with black gets you this very, very warm kind of a very, very warm blue, which is quite a warm green, which is really nice. And then adding a little bit of red into that can make it more interesting as well. So that's like those are like two default greens that you can mix that are really nice in terms of traditional media. Let's put that foreground back in there. That actually make a big difference for how you paint. Also, I did say a version of this that's all the black and white stuff before I started doing all this, so I did have the foresight to do that. But yeah, so green, it's not really that big of a problem once you kind of understand it. But funny enough, like a lot of cultures didn't have a word that distinguished between green and blue. So I think that was true of East Asian cultures. I think it's true of often Western culture. Make sure I'm painting on the right layer. Where they really didn't actually have a separate name for it. So like I think you'll see like some older Western, like Western as in European text, you'll see things about like green skies, and I'm not entirely convinced that they actually perceived a difference between green and blue. And you'll see that like in ancient texts as well, like they didn't really see or perceive the difference between the two, which is really interesting to to think about. Though my favorite color name, which still remains to be my favorite one, is Chinese word for brown. The literal word is the word in Cantonese anyways, "gafe sec," which means like it literally translates to coffee brown or coffee color. Sec is color, and gafe is coffee. Which I just find really funny that they named a color for what it looks like rather than having its own kind of name. So now you know. Not sure how they pronounce it exactly in Mandarin, but that's the Cantonese edition. Gafe sec. So I don't know. We'll see. But I always thought that was interesting. So we can change the opacity on this. Maybe I'll play around with that here. Just get a little bit of gradation in there. Bring that down even more. Terra Vist. Thinking around here in Mental Canvas tonight. So I thought there was another rock over here that I'd somehow like not painted or something. There it is. And you get the gradations that way. It's not optimal, but yeah, functional, I guess. Everyone excited about the incoming flood of fake AI users from Meta onto all of their platforms? Very exciting stuff, right? Really have no idea like what positive outcome they can possibly think they're going to get from that. completely baffles me as to why they think that's a good idea. There are, there's a lot of evidence they've been losing a lot of users and engagement over the last few years. Definitely slowed down on signups, but because almost everybody has an account. Yeah, the good old dead internet theory, right? It's like, how about we make it true as quickly as we can and publicly? I guess everyone will have to go outside and touch grass or something. Enough with no choice but to live in the real world. It's like I want my mini disc player back. I don't know that that counts, but yeah. Imagine how horrible that'd be, going outside and seeing the real world again. I don't know. I don't know how many of us could deal with that. Too late. Yeah, I think. Well, yeah, one of the adages that I like to live by is something from Robert Henry. He's a early 20th century, late 19th century American painter. And you'll see his stuff like in museums in the American Midwest. He's kind of in that Ashcan school of artists from that time period. Henry spelled Henri, and but he wrote a book. Well, he didn't really. It's not really a book that he wrote per se. It's like a collection of notes of things that he said to other people or wrote to other people. That's been compiled into a book called The Art Spirit. It's not really organized by subject per se, but he talks about art student attitudes and kind of the way you look at things. So he's recalling, when he was studying that, some days his apartment looked like, or his place he was living just looked like, a complete dump where no one would ever want to set foot, and it's miserable and everything's terrible and it's cold and all that. And other days he would look at it and romanticize it. Say, wow, here I am being an artist. I'm living the life I want to live. And this place really has kind of a romantic quality to it. And but he makes a point in there saying that with art schools, especially as part of that, I think overall statement. It's been a long time since I've read it, but I think that was where it was part of that. But he's saying basically, when you go out into engage with things in the world, is that those things tend to try to force you to conform to whatever it is. And so he's saying, like, with art schools, they're trying to like push whatever their values are onto you, and kind of make you a part of whatever it is that they're doing. But he says, really, that your job as the student is to take advantage, to use those systems for yourself, because they exist whether you want, whether you care about them or not. And you can't really, per se, get rid of them, but you can make sure that they're serving your interests, whatever those may be. And I think that's kind of a way to look at this. A lot of this stuff is to say, hey, while there may be the persistent and ongoing and ever increasing enshittification, there's still an opportunity to put whatever it is that you value and interest in front of more people in more ways than's ever existed before in all of history. There's more things that you can do now than that anyone's ever been able to do any time in history. We live in shockingly abundant times, and peaceful times, actually, in spite of all the crazy things that do happen. Um, we do live in very, very unusual times in the context of all of history, and I think it's important to remember that. Not that it can't go south or anything, or there aren't problems to be fully cognizant of, but let's see, more saturation. But looking at the changing media landscape, one of the things I've noticed too, like kind of re-educate myself on some of the like how social media works and things. So I'm trying to be more active with that now that my little truck project is finished, working on my teaching site and all that, and kind of reviewing that. One of the things I've kind of been looking at the numbers on Instagram, and if I just do a standard post, so like a carousel of images, even if you put some music to it or whatever from their little library there of clips, it'll only show posts to your audience. It does not show them outside of your audience at all. Like less than like a small percent. And of course my reach is down too because I haven't been as active and things have changed and all that. But maybe I'm boring. That could be that too. My students tell me I'm amazing just before grades are due, oddly enough. But one of the things I've noticed is that if you post a reel, at least in my case, it sends about a third to a quarter of that, whatever that reel is, in front of a new audience. Which, it's definitely annoying, for sure. Having to chase whatever the little rules are that they change. And, part of it, like, from a practical point of view, I understand why they do change it, because people that learn to manipulate the systems, and so that's part of why they don't always kind of really tell you what's going on. You have to go to, like, the outside sources to figure it out. But that's one thing I looked at the numbers, and it's quite shocking. It'd be like, for a post, it'll say 95 or 98% of the viewers were from your own audience. People that liked it or looked at it or saw it were just your own audience. And then it'll I do a reel, and it'll be like 2/3 were your audience, and the other third were people from outside your audience. And so when I do a reel, I'll usually pick up like a handful of new followers, whereas if I do a post, I don't get any. So I've thought about maybe because I guess people don't really go to profiles as much anymore. So I'm thinking about maybe trying to double it up, like do a post and a reel of the same thing, basically, maybe. See how that goes. I think I might try that tomorrow just to see what happens. But I hate chasing all these rules around, because it just I'd rather be focused on making fun things that people enjoy, and not having to fuss about whatever misery Mosseri and Meta want to inflict on us. I'd be curious to know what the original developers of Instagram kind of think about its trajectory now. I'm sure that they cried all the way to the bank with their buyout, but I do like to think that they were annoyed with some of the changes. So let's go with that, and then bring the opacity down. Yeah, well, it's like a lot of artists just want your work to kind of speak for itself, I think that's generally a rule. Is people do prefer it when they see your face, because it makes it more present to them. I think that's like a universal social media thing, and it's more trustworthy to a certain degree. So I kind of understand it, but people like keep their anonymity. Yeah, so um, I'll work on this foreground here. Alright, so if we grab you, actually I put us through the middle area there first. Yeah, well, I don't like to follow trends too much. I think that kind of gets in the way of doing interesting things. All right, let's change the color of the line. So I did learn that, which is, oops, I didn't want to do that. I want this. Paint mode, there we go. It is, this thing is fun. Again, I have issues with this app, and so this is let's see, let's change that to like a dark blue, and then maybe make it darker, and then warm it up over here to the greens. It just has a lot of limitations. It's mental canvas. Go to the selection, and then we will lock that layer, turn on that one. So if you've seen like those infinite zoom videos, people will do that in here. You can also like make things and spin it around, like create different. Here's what it is it creates planes. So each of these, there's these canvases on the left, and basically it creates a single plane for that canvas, and you paint on it, and you can move it around back and forth in where it's at in its position in space. But the app has a lot of limitations. So let's grab that color. So it does some cool things, but it's also $30, and I don't understand, the value proposition as much there. We're using you, and let's see, let's grab a shadow color there, and then we will darken that up. And then like the interface is really awkward to kind of work with. So like want to get to this takes 2 steps to get to the color picker. Brushes are really limited. And then there's a creative version that's like $30, but like their standard professional version is $60 a month for the professional version. What it is what they're really charging you extra for is server access. So basically, in order to create, so like it's an interactive space like this, if you want to post the interactive file to your website, it's housed with their tech on their server, and so with the creator one, you get 3 of those that are included with that $30, and then you can the app is unlocked to use as you want. You can make videos with it too, so it creates these little bookmarks down here. So if I turn on all the layers I've made, you can see it does like this, and then what I can do is if I go into camera mode, I can bookmark each of these spots. You can play with how long they take in between each other, but you can basically play through. You can make like a little story and show different points of view and things like that of whatever scene you're making. So like if I wanted to show a scene that was over there, it could transition from this view to that view. And you could do that, or you could zoom in on this and have something happening here, and zoom past that and have something there and there. and so on as you go back in space. And so that's actually really neat. But you could do all of this in Blender for free, basically, right? With Grease Pencil, and you could even create 3D models that have toon shaders on them, and that's not really hard to do. There's lots of YouTube tutorials using the color ramp stuff. But if you go to like Bobby Chu, he'll do kind of infinite zoom videos with this. I guess he's putting out one tomorrow or today or something like that. So again, it's neat. But again, because of the limitations, like the brush palette up here, like this is it for brushes. You can pick these brushes, change their size, and then you can play with opacity over in the color swatch area. And that's it. There's no layer effects. You can't have like a multiply layer or things like that. You can't change the opacity of the layers. You can change the opacity of a color, but not the layer. That sort of thing. And so it has like these weird, in my mind anyway, weird limitations. And then they haven't really done any development on it in 2 years. Yeah, so so one thing that's actually nice about the limitations though is it is easy to use once you kind of figure it out. A lot of times when I'm using apps like this, my brain is trying to make it do things that other apps do, and that often gets kind of in my way. The eraser is only one size, so it doesn't erase the stroke. It erases the whole stroke. It doesn't just erase the shape you're drawing. It erases the whole stroke. Yeah, so it's been around for, actually I was looking at their YouTube page. They had an initial video 9 years ago on there. So it's been around a while. But I think it became available, I think 3 years ago. I picked it up, I think 2 years ago. I think that's when it kind of hit the public face. But they haven't like updated anything, and it doesn't do anything new in the last 2 years. It's exactly the same as it was. So it's not like they've added X new brushes or moved fixed up the interface and all the things you would expect. An app that costs $30 or $60 a month, $600 a year to do. Like they just haven't done anything, which is weird. Maybe they made their million on it and just kind of maintaining it. I don't know. I have noticed that like a lot of the interface and functionality is very similar over in the Feather app. So I was playing around with that. I did play around with actually 3 new things during the break when I was at my parents'. So I was doing some finger painting on my phone, which I haven't done in forever. Noticed a few things and sent some notes to the app maker. And then, it's kind of expensive as a toy, right? Like $60 a month, that's a full Adobe subscription. Like, you get everything in the Adobe library for that, whether you want it or not. But again, they haven't done anything. So I sent a note to them saying, hey, there's like, I noticed some things, using the phone app that I hadn't, I don't use it all that often. But I was on the plane, I was like, it might be fun to dink around with this instead of pulling out my iPad. And sent him some notes about that. In fact, I even came home and pulled out my old Adonit Jot Touch stylus. And and then so I played around with this Christmas Day mostly. Actually, if you look at the file name for it, it's the 25th of December. I tend to name my files after their date and then the subject. It's easier for me to remember what's kind of what that way. And but yeah, so I played with this, and I started playing with the Feather app a little bit, just to give it a go. That one's like $15, and that's just what it costs. But it has like this thing down here in there. So yeah, so I played around those three things during the break, which was fun. I kind of learned some new things. So I pulled this app out, which I hadn't used in a long time, just to see what I thought about it, because it's been a couple of years. See maybe what updates they've had since I last played with it, and again, just surprised really to see they haven't done anything like at all. The interface is exactly the same, functionality is the same. I think the only thing they've done is just update the so it works with the operating system, is all the updating they've been doing with it. So I sent a note again to that app Infinite Painter guy. I said, hey, you thought about putting this type of functionality into Infinite Painter? It would be more pixel based. This is this is vector based. But maybe make it more pixel based. Too dark. And that way, be a thing over there, because they haven't updated it in forever. Because it would definitely be a really great, it's a very unique thing to be able to kind of work in a 3D space like that. It's really basic, and so I sent him a note saying, hey, I should look at that. See, maybe that would be, make your app more popular with people if you're able to do something like that. Plus, have all the brush functionality that it comes with, and things like that would be really nice. I have no idea how hard that would be to do. I'm not a programmer, but as someone who can dream, thinks it could be neat, fun to use, great for clients and personal work. Sent him a little note, said, hey, maybe you ought to consider that. So that would definitely be, a killer feature. Basically, Procreate sort of has it already, if you think about it, because you can texture 3D models in Procreate. So I don't think it would be that hard to set up like a sequence of movable planes that you draw on inside of it. So it seems like it's something that's doable by different app makers. Even if they're not going to do, say, the vector thing that you do here. And maybe you can't. Maybe there's a way of exporting a functional exploratory file out, to QuickTime file or something like that version where you can move it around at least. Something. Alright, how's that look with the layers turned on down there? Guess I'll get rid of that one. That one's in front of there, so I should put that up there. Yeah, let's see. What time is it? 9 o'clock. Yeah, I'll be on for like another hour. But that's me. Have a good night. Now we'll color this foreground layer up. So, well, it's not working as well as I thought, but I can play with that. Alright, you are next. So let's grab you. Let's merge this down. There we go, that did merge down. Alright, and then we want to pull back. And we are going to select a whole layer of lines. Oh, that's right, I wanted to make sure it didn't select that. There we go. And we're going to change this. I like how it completely kills it. And then I'm going to change that to be darker. If I don't break the app. Come on, go darker. Uh-oh. Let's give it a minute to think about that. Let's see, bring that up there. Well, it's thinking about it. Alright, I don't see anything in here I want to check out. Still not moving, huh? Did I crash it? Alright, let's give it a minute to think. Charge that up while I'm at it. Let that think. Hopefully it's not... Oh, it did crash. Let's see what I lost. What I get for looking away, right? Alright, let's see. Yeah, it's back. Alright, so I didn't lose much. That's good. It's transparent, so it's just the drawing layer. And it looks like it kept the color. Except I want it to be dark, so let's made it transparent. So maybe what I'll do here is select a little bit at a time rather than the whole thing. That's right, I want you. So we'll just select that area. And then see if we can't bring that color down. Like that. That's good enough. And then we'll deselect all of that. And then we'll select the other side. want to duplicate any of that. That was, oh, plus, not minus. There we go. Did I break something? Alright, perfect. And then clear that. Turn off the selection. There we go. Now turn that back on. I think that's the old sketch. So now we can go ahead and color it. Turn off the clouds. Too dark, huh? Actually, let's go ahead and just do all of that at once. Perfect. And then go out of that. Probably a little too dark. So let's lighten that up a little bit. Should be good. Alright, I hope I didn't crash the app again. Come on, wakey wakey. Wakey wakey, Mr. Appy. That's evidence, it's definitely vector based, right? It's crashing like that. Nothing there. So decided what it's going to do yet? Alright, we broken or what? Alright, let's just crash that and then bring it back in. Hopefully I didn't lose too much. As long as I kept the line change, I think I'll be okay. Oh, there it is. Yeah, so it kept all that. Let's see what we got here for layers, huh? Why doesn't it show that layer? That's confusing. Oh, maybe it's selected it, so it changed the color of it. I see what happened there. So let's lock you, unlock you, and then let's go into view. Just do it in half. Oh, we don't want it to be black. Some kind of green. And then we'll grab a little bit more. And change that color. Perfect. Clear that. Grab that. Actually, let's clear that, and then grab that, and then grab the color. Alright. Now we can get back into this, so let's get some local color going in here with these guys. One layer. Alright. Excuse me. Welcome, welcome. Good evening. Let's see how these layers look if we turn them back on. There we go. That's starting to feel more interesting, at least. Right? Nothing. All right. Answers that question. And let's get some of those colors up there. Start with you, bring it down, lighten up a little bit, down, and not that down, this down. There we go, perfect. I appreciate that. It's kind of a fun thing, right? It's this mental canvas app, so you can kind of paint and slightly animate in 3D. So I pulled it out during the break to play with, but it does have, issues that I complain about, but it's still kind of fun to use. It's very basic in terms of what it does, but its functionality is really limited, but it does seem unique. The animation thing, the 3D planes are all kind of very unique to it. But they haven't really done anything to it in a couple of years. So I'm not sure how I feel about recommending, especially as expensive as it is. They do have a creator edition that's cheaper. The full version that includes some additional kind of services, which I don't have. I just bought the basic one, but It's just kind of expensive for what you're getting. The basic one's $30, which is kind of a lot for an app on your iPad. But it does have some unique functionality. But yeah, the full-blown edition is like $60 a month, which I think is just kind of crazy expensive. I think anyway, for what you're getting. I'm not sure if they make it for Mac. Maybe. I have mixed feelings about it. So I've been talking about that a little bit here. Because basically, this is it for brushes. That's all you get. You can pick these brushes, change their size, can change the opacity of the color. Brush just erases strokes, so it doesn't actually erase like the shapes and things it makes. Just erases strokes. Has a fill thing, and you can select stuff to automatically kind of change colors or delete things out if you want to. There's no layer effects. There's no transparency, so I can't change the transparency of the layer without changing the whole color thing going on. So it has like these limitations in it, and then it's also kind of expensive, I think anyway. So I have feelings, as the kids would say, concerns about it. So I bought it a couple years ago when it was new-ish to everybody. And it does neat things like you can do those infinite zoom paintings, so I can keep zooming in on stuff on it, through different layers, which that's kind of a fun thing that you can do with it. I pulled it out during the break and did the gray drawing version, so I thought, put that much time into it, I might as well sit down and color it and play around with it, because I paid for it, right? A long time ago. Get my money, paid for the movie, watch it all the way through. But I was kind of rediscovering a little bit during the break just to see what I could do with it, see if what they've tweaked or updated, and kind of found they haven't really added anything into it. Like there's not like new brushes or editing capabilities or really anything that new in it, so I can't really recommend it that much. I'd like to, but I'd love to see more functionality and all that to really be able to recommend it to people. Let's see. Let's go ahead and select. Let's just make sure the layers are locked. I'm just selecting that layer. And let's bring that opacity down a lot. 40 sounds good. Yeah, so it's interesting, but I just don't feel like it's something I can really emphasize as a high recommendation. At least not as it is. Especially as expensive as it is, so that's part of the hesitancy with it. But definitely has its use cases. I think it's just its limits kind of that it has kind of get in the way of recommending it to people generally. Too bright. Good evening. Ooh, 9:37, huh? Probably gonna clock out here in a little bit. That's not the color I picked. I wanted you. Good evening, everybody. Alright, I'm going to jump into the background. So don't leave that there. I just want to get rid of the cloud layers. And we're going to jump into you. Give that a big brush. And we are going to jump into some sky color. Good evening. Alright, let's go ahead and paint some clouds in there. Grab pencil, buff up your size. Okay, there's my cloud brush. Alright, I think I'm going to call it there for tonight. I'll probably come back to this tomorrow for a bit. Finish coloring it up and then do some detailing on it, I guess, and then call this little experiment done. But yeah, thanks everybody that came in. I appreciate it, and we'll talk to you next time.